Hello, what I'm about to show you is a video clip Dr. Bruce Stinchcomb made in the late 80s, early 90s about the Mazon Creek Formation. It has a lot of good information and a lot of neat fossils that he pulled out of there. Please stay tuned and take a look.
First stop will be around Braidwood, Illinois, a famous fossil area, sometimes known as the Mazon Creek fossils, a fossil area that was exposed in strip mining in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, which over a number of decades yielded a variety of very, very beautiful fossils. Then we're going to continue west to St. Louis and on to California.
When you make that California trip, get your kicks on Route 66.
Route 66 followed essentially what the path that I-55 follows today, and went right through an area which is famous in the annals of paleontology, known as the Braidwood fossil beds, or perhaps better known as the Mazon Creek fossil beds. In the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, strip mining of coal piled up piles of gray shale, which was shale beds that directly overlied the coal seam which was being mined. And these shale piles were allowed to weather for a decade or two. And out of the shale beds would appear these reddish ironstone nodules. Ironstone nodules which contained in the center of them a fossil nucleus. Sometimes a plant, sometimes an animal. Animal fossils are pretty rare in the Braidwood area, but they were unusual because they're some of the first land animals represented, which include insects. These are the wings of a cockroach, and dragonflies. This is a dragonfly, and horseshoe crab-like animals that some believe climb the tree ferns and then would fall out of them and get preserved in these ironstone concretions. The coal mining today is probably uncovering things like this, but the reclamation requirements immediately bury the shales, and they don't allow them to weather and be exposed. So the conditions that produce the Braidwood fossils are no longer being present. Some of the foliage of the coal age forest. This is the plant Aleothopteris. You see here Pecopteris, a very, very common fossil that you see at Maps Expo and a lot of rock shows. There were literally thousands and thousands and thousands of these collected from the Mazon Creek fossil beds and the Braidwood fossil beds. Here is the much larger leaf Nereopteris. And there are a variety of other ferns, most of which are rarer than the three genera that I mentioned. But one of the most extensive floras of coal-age plants with some of the most superb preservation. The preservation is three-dimensional. You can see the actual ribs on the plants, and some of the reproductive organs like the sori of the ferns have been preserved, and some of the seeds of the seed ferns have been preserved. It is a phenomenal locality. It's considered as one of the paleontological windows of the geologic past. East of the Braidwood area is another zone of ironstone fossils which are very different. The Braidwood flora is brackish or fresh water and contains no or very few marine animals and marine life forms. But east of there is what is known as the Essex biota, which contains a variety of animals, many of them very, very unusual, such as the Tully monster, or another form known as Wise. Again, the Essex area with its ironstone concretions is considered as one of the paleontological windows, one of the, sometimes called Lagerstätten, one of the very, very superb windows on geologic time that has preserved animals and plants in ways that are normally not preserved in the fossil record. One might say why the coal-bearing strata preserve such nice things in these areas and other places has not yielded them. Well, unfortunately, the reclamation programs in coal mining has directed that coal spoil, which is the shale that overlies the coal beds, now be buried and leveled and covered by soil. And the beds of shale don't get a chance to outcrop and weather the way they did a number of decades ago in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. So although there are probably some of the coal beds that are being mined in Illinois and Indiana and Ohio that may contain comparable windows on the pass as the Braidwood and Essex floras and faunas, unfortunately the fossils are not being recovered today the way they were a number of decades past. So literally thousands of collectors scoured the spoil piles of both the Braidwood and the Essex areas and collected vast numbers of the ironstone concretions, which have found their ways into collections of both museums and private collectors.